What is up, you parlay pirates roaming the seas looking for some plus money treasure on a Friday? It is Andy. We got 4 NHL games for you on the slate tonight. And I know the majority of you pirates, and I know you're excited today because last night you nailed the over 6 in the Lightning game. You got the Braden Point over 1.5 points. You got the Lightning money line. You got the Red Wings money line. You got the over 2.5 shots on goal for Noah Dobson. But I know you people, that's still not enough. You're like a vampire who got their first taste of blood, and now you're thirsty for more. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go out on a Friday night, maybe get yourself a steak dinner and enjoy the fruits of your sniff, as I like to say? Of course not. Of course you're not going to do that, because winning a couple hundred at the casino, that's never enough for you. You're not stopping until your name is on the side of that place like Biff Tannen in Back to the Future 2. So if that's not enough for you, well, then how about I bring on another betting analyst, one who taught you everything you need to know about trickle-down snakeonomics last week. It was the first class you ever took in your life that didn't put you 2 decades into debt with some sort of collection company, college. And if that's still not enough, well then, how about I just bring on a former NHLer to add even more insight? Well, just like many of your pirate dreams that already came true on this channel, that's exactly what I got for you today. I'm going to welcome back Josh from Covers and his co-host, a guy who I can guarantee you had as much homemade marinara sauce jarred and available in the fridge at all times at his disposal growing up as I did, former NHL defenseman Carlo Koliakovo. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Last time was great. I can only imagine this time we'll get a little crazy.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Thanks for having me, Andy. And by the way, I must do a correction. It wasn't marinara sauce. It was vodka sauce.
So, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I always wanted to know the difference between tri-state area Italians, and I heard the Italians that when there's a whole group of them that went up there to Toronto, but something tells me they're not like the Jersey Shore variety that I grew up around.
No, definitely not. No.
Italian
or the homeland variety, yes.
Okay, so no fist pumping at the clubs for Carlo.
No, this is the new fist pump. This is the new fist pump for Italians. Shout out to Tommy DeVito, the New York Giants there, yes.
I got offended by the name Tommy. There's not a chance Tommy Cutlets had even a percentage of the cutlet intake that like if you sent our blood to one of those ancestry.com and got them sent back, mine's coming out significantly higher percentage cutlets. I cannot tell you guys the amount that I had growing up. But anyway, I wanted to bring up something with you guys. I saw a rather absurd amount of disrespect that you guys threw for Carolina the other day. Just say, great price on the Bruins. Like Carolina isn't some goalie-proof team who's rotated different goaltenders throughout the playoffs last year or the last 2 years, 3 years, and who has like pretty much, maybe other than Edmonton, like the best record in the NHL the last month and a half. It's something I've had to yell at people on this channel because the way it works around here, the NHL is not an 82-game season. What I see in the first 20 games is the final. That's the decision, and there's no wiggle room from there. So just going forward, be careful betting against Rod and those guys. They're coming for that division.
Yeah, we should have known the mom's trip was the difference, and the thing that turned the Carolina
always bet on moms
around. Yeah, anytime you see a mom's trip, bet on the team with the moms.
Speaking of which, Carlo, how many times do you see people come out with some outlandish things like, and you being a player that's experienced them saying like, this guy's really betting on this because, you know, you hear some crazy thing like trying to think of.
Well, I'll give you an example. It's a Carolina Hurricanes angle. You remember when David Ayers, the E-Bug goalie, came into the middle of the game?
It's on your Twitter feed.
Maple Leafs?
I posted him last night. I posted a picture of that guy last night when I said I would run my team like Carolina. I'm not investing money in goalies. I'm investing in a coach that creates a goalie-proof system like Trotz, where multiple guys are up for the Vezina, no matter who. Hey, Braden Holtby, he even got a Vezina, as a candidate.
I think the NHL running back situation, basically.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Next man up.
That's what I said over the summer. That's what I said over the summer. But, Islander fans, they're a different breed of orcs. Like they went nuts on me because I'm not obviously saying that Sorokin is a bad goalie but, you look him, Shesterkin, 2 lackluster years in a row in terms of what they're compared to. And then you see teams like the Knights pull Aiden Hill out of obscurity last year, and you see Colorado just rotating goalies winning the cup. Yes, Vasilevsky won the previous couple years, but Tampa they were right there every single. They were there with Bishop, and I mean,
well, I'll be honest with you, Andy. I'm glad you're having this conversation because I side with you. I would never commit to a goalie for more than 4 years, maybe even 3.
Not paying Peter Mrazek $2.9 million over 2.
Yeah, that guy got lucky, man. That he's in Chicago and they have no idea what they're doing. That's what I believe.
By the way, I have an awful tendency to cut people off that I'm working on every day, every year. It's probably never going to happen by the time I die.
Your voice is loud, though. It's okay. It cuts through, and you don't have that.
Oh, it's good, man.
You were making a point about ridiculous things, and you were using that goalie to use as an example.
Right. I just think like goalies are an important position. I'm not trying to discredit that. But I think we're seeing an evolution of the goalie position where you're never going to see a goaltender play more than 65 games. So you're going to have this tandem because people are so obsessed with sports science, and it's unheard of nowadays for a goalie to play back-to-back. Like, God forbid when
Carlo
people,
hates science.
And I hate analytics. And when people,
you mean analytics?
Analytics, yes.
Analytics?
Yes,
I hate that analytics.
It's just like it's an unheard of thing. Like a goalie can't play back to back. It's just it's frowned upon. So, and I think because of that, like how many goalies do you see consistently play at an elite level year after year?
One. I call him the bronze man who gets disrespect. He may not win the Vezina every year, but there's one guy in it every year, and it's Hellebuck.
Well, it's Vasilevsky too, right?
Nah, he hasn't had a year in a good 3 seasons now. But although I've seen that guy in the playoffs. Give me one game to win versus the Aliens. For me, it's always Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
Always.
So that's why, like and you're seeing teams like Carolina, early on in this season when LA was a dominant team. I mean, they started the season winning 11 in a row on the road. They did it because they're 2 goaltenders who they paid a combined $2.5 million. They're saying, we just need a guy in there that we can trust to make saves and give us a chance to win. Because we'd rather spend that money elsewhere in our lineup. So
especially when
the goaltending position.
Especially when the money is it's such a squeeze with these last couple of years and the cap not going up and whatnot. I mean, if you can save a little bit on goalie, it works wonders for the rest of your lineup. And I mean,
by the way, there you go. You just said
speaking of the analytics, I've seen a lot of people going, well, what do you expect from Sorokin? He had to start like 9 games in a row. How is it that people just always disregard, you can't start a goalie that many times, and then the playoffs come around, they're starting every other night for 2 months. And if they ever had a bad game, people don't go, well, I mean, he had to start all of round 1 and now it's game 2 of round 2. Nobody would allow that excuse, but for some people are plucking for random things throughout the year.
It's very easy to find information to suit any narrative you're trying to find. That's my job. Like I'm trying to sell a pick. Like if I wanted to find information, it's very easy to sell. And I mean, the sniffers need to know, and they do know what's good information and what isn't. Like is this guy building his narrative just for the fact that that's a cool talking point, or is there actually some shit behind it? Like,
well, I think
but like 1 second, but like Andy's point the other day, like look at Patch on the other side of John Carlson, but look at the SAG the PK gives to Ovechkin constantly, which leaves Pacioretty on that wing constantly available for shots. Over 3.5 shots, got us 3 easy. That's it. That's
Josh,
the handicap.
That's one thing I always give you credit for. You're amazing at finding these markets because of the analytics. He
wanted to say analytics, but he forgot
analytics. I'm going to call them.
Nice, thank you.
And so when you're talking about hockey, I think where analytics can have a tremendous value is in the shots market because, you know, if you're trying to
Quite a bit of
evaluate
variance in the old shot market, though, whether it gets through, whether it's blocked, whether.
Well, dude, that's the one thing I can't understand. Like, who's the guy in the rink counting these shots? Why?
Who's counting these
I
shots?
cannot stand when I've got an over in a shots market. I see the number hit, and then I go back and look at it 5 minutes later, and it gets taken off the board.
Oh,
It's a guy like
this.
this.
Uncomfortable.
It's a guy like this. Oh man. Oh, that girl from Starbucks. What are you? Oh man. Oh wait, what happened? Horvat got it. No, that was no shot. That's basically what the guy is doing. I'll never forget last year. Horvat had 5 shots. I gave that out as a pick. I look at the end of the game, he had 2. They removed 3 shots from him. I mean, 1, okay. 2, now I'm really gonna look at you weird. 3 removed shots.
Yeah. Take a hike. Yeah.
And anything where you don't know the answer, just like last night, the Islanders, they scored a goal clearly before the whistle went in. And they just go, well, no. It's when the ref decides in his head that he's going to begin to blow the whistle.
Yeah.
What?
When the neurons start firing.
Oh, can you put me on a total recall machine with Arnold Schwarzenegger and verify that for me? Absolutely not. You've just allowed a Weasley gray area to retroactively fix whatever you want. Because if it's clearly in before the whistle, as every single hockey player, play through the whistle, I guess. No, it's play through the random neurons that fire off in a singular ref's head, and who knows if it matches up with the other one. What a scam that is right there.
100% it is. And now that betting's become illegal and a big part of the conversation in hockey, you really start to question who the hell is keeping count of these shots. Because when I'm on a shot market and I'm watching the game, I know what's a shot and what's not a shot. And then when I see the guy take a shot, it's going on net, and I go and make sure it's counted. It's like, okay, they counted, and then I go back. It's like, they took it off? What the hell?
If I ever see cluster shots, if I see a guy go from 0 to 2, I immediately know that one of those is coming off the board.
Because he gets a shot and he gets a quick rebound, or he's batting at it when the goalie's trying to cover it?
I've been doing an investigation because I'm trying to find that same thing. Like, who the hell is tracking these shots? Okay, emails out to the league, emails out to PR, nothing back from the league. Talk to the guy who created Money Puck, a very, very smart guy from Toronto. And he's looked at it and he's like, there's a tendency not to record shots on like in tight rebounds. Like if you get 2 whacks, you're getting 1 shot unless you score on the second whack. Then they have to, because you can't have a shot on goal without you can't have a goal without a shot on goal, basically.
Yeah.
So that means the goalie's also not getting a save.
Goalie's not getting a save either. Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
That is, the lack of transparency there. The whole reason you have to list players in the NFL and you get fined because Bijan Robinson woke up with a stuffy nose and you didn't report it is because of how much money's on the line. With hockey, I'm like, I guess.
And then you play him one snap, and everybody loses the bets. If he didn't play a snap in that game, I know what game you're referencing.
Oh, yeah.
I was on Bijan Robinson, 1 snap.
Fuck. Man. Yeah, a little. I guess maybe as we go down the road, and if there's some controversial one, they will kind of force their hand or whatnot. But yeah, Josh is unbelievable at that. Like I find myself like I'm good on the first 2 layers, but when you're talking about like that, Josh is a true crevice checker. Like he's checking teams on their second, third lines to see any sort of elevation that's worth it, and that's invaluable. Like it's. As I was saying last time, it's a very tedious process to actually figure out, because this isn't the NFL. This isn't these like well-known reporters. There's some kid out of college with a pencil over his ear, and he's just kind of giving updates on Twitter, and that we're taking his word for it. So to know what's good, what's not good, teams like Jake DeBrusk yesterday all day listed as a top line play, and then half an hour before the game they re-put out lines. He's not on the top line. They're going back to the original top line. So you got to know which reporters do what, which teams declare late. It's a lot to parse through.
It's easy to see the initial move, but to follow it up and see where the source is coming from, equally important.
Yeah,
definitely. So
and
I guess
Josh is a guy that moves lines. I remember we do a show with him and he points out Alex Kerfoot playing on the top line, plus money to get a point, plus 400 to get a power play point because he's playing on the top power play unit. The minute we talk about it, the minute we put it out, it either goes off the board or it comes down half the price. It's crazy.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is algorithm based because
volume coming. So yeah, the book will see volume coming in and being like, well, why is there so much action on this no-name guy in this market that hasn't been touched? Let's stop, pause the market, and then reassess where we are so we don't take too much risk on it.
Yeah,
that's
so I bet
I'm not moving the market. It's just an inefficient line that becomes efficient once I.
Well, that was a compliment to you because I know that. I get it,
but like, right? It was a line that was off, and eventually it will become efficient, like most other lines.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Well, I guess then maybe we should check some crevices on today's slate. We got 4 games on our hand now. As I mentioned last time, a lot of these guys, Carlo, they refer to themselves as a bunch of things. I refer to them as parlay pirates, where they want to put everything together and have a payday that's going to change their life. They never needed to play a day in the NHL. Why? Because they saw a guy on YouTube who apparently is going to make them millions with one big parlay. So I call them parlay pirates, but they call themselves raw dog. Or sometimes they just want, see these picks on your screen? That's what they want. Don't make me click into more bets. You see those 284 bets? Don't make me click into there. I just want to slap pay. So I want to be rich without even clicking 284 more bets. I just want to slap things on the screen and then just, go out with tons of money in my pocket. So, I know, as Josh said last week, the hardest things to predict in hockey are these quote unquote raw dog picks. Maybe less so with the over-unders, but I mean, the amount of upsets you see, the worst team in the NHL on their home ice is lingering somewhere around 500. Yeah. This isn't like asking the Carolina Panthers to beat the Buffalo Bills or something like that on the road. You see it so many times in the NHL.
We saw it yesterday with the Blackhawks and Oilers. It was the most one-sided game in the history of the NHL in the last 2 years, at least 2 years. And I mean, obviously Chicago didn't score, but it was 0-2 going to late, and Edmonton needed that empty net goal to cover the spread. But there's always a chance in hockey. Like, out of all the sports, hockey is the one that bounces are more important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things to factor, right? I mean, a spot that I like focusing on is schedule. Like I focus a lot of my attention on games based on schedule. 3rd game in 4 nights, back to back. Are you coming off of a long Western road trip like the Rangers are tonight, playing against a Golden Knights team that's just been sitting in New York waiting for them? Those are the things I like to focus on because I bring my own personal travel experiences into that. And I think that's why you see a lot of upsets is because of the schedule. You guys are playing 82 games. And the parity in the NHL is probably bigger than any other league that exists out there, where as bad as the San Jose Sharks are or have been throughout the season, they could be getting themselves up for one game to play some of their best hockey where they're getting more power plays. They're feeling it more than the other team. Maybe they had a better pregame meal than the other team did. So there's just a lot of things to factor in. And that's why, since me and Josh have partnered together, the one thing we absolutely stay away from is chalk. You don't win in the NHL by betting chalk. You will get absolutely killed. So you got to find value with good teams, value with the plus money teams, and even just value with, player props and stuff like that. Try to stay away as much as you can from chalky lines because you'll lose.
Favorites 60% on the year, by the way, in the NHL.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that philosophy in certain instances, like Tampa was my favorite play yesterday. If they were on the road, it was the way it lined up. They've been playing great on their own home ice. And, the Coyotes looked like a disaster. Ooh. I thought that maybe, or just in that previous game, I thought them going right to many times I've seen somebody take that Florida spanking and then the next night Florida spanking. And I just had faith in that top line in Tampa Bay on their own home ice to where they can kind of get the matchups they want. And Vasilevsky's starting to play better.
So just to touch on that. So Tampa was a favorite play for us yesterday too, but we did Tampa regulation, right? Because Tampa regulation, they were probably what, -30 or -40, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Versus the money line 220, right? You're trying to limit your losses.
But we're looking like we touched on it earlier, like Kucherov and like Tampa Bay and Colorado, because Kucherov and McKinnon are going point for point right now. There's a higher chance that those teams, that's probably not priced in, a higher chance that those teams will cover puck lines because they're hungrier to score that empty net goal or empty net point because, I mean, they just need a point.
Right.
Yeah. And this first game that you see, I actually want to talk about the Knights first, but this first game you see is an exact, like a perfect case of most people probably saw the Florida throw an absolute beating the other day. Most people saw Pittsburgh get destroyed by the same exact team that Florida just crushed. So your average guy's walking down the street. He's got a 9-to-5 job. He's got a MacBook Pro and a Chase debit card. Actually, I don't know if you guys got that up there in Canada, but down in the US, he's got a Chase debit card. You know, when he was a kid, he had a poster of Britney Spears on his wall, and now he thinks he's got the play of the century. It's the Florida Panthers, because I watched them the other night, and they may be picking that, but we'll return to that one in a second, because the game that I want to focus on is that one right underneath it. Now, you mentioned Rangers coming off a long road trip.
Right.
And what I see here, as long as Aiden Hill is starting, to me, he's a deciding factor. He looked I think it was 40 saves against
46
the Isles.
46.
And without Jack Eichel and without Carlson, and, you know, they're still missing Shea Theodore on the back end, Vegas to accumulate points, if you just remove that one Devils game, and games can kind of go crazy with the Devils, they're trying to win these lower scoring games, which we know their coach is a big fan of. And the first thing I'm looking at here is some variation of an under. I don't know if this just listed at 5.5, which I almost refuse to believe. You want to pop back to the main screen?
It did. So I did some research on this game, and over the season series of these two teams over the last 10 games, it has been 2-8 favored to the under. But most of those games had a 6 or 6.5 total. So that's where I get a little bit skeptical on this one. Maybe Josh, you can chime in.
Oh, I do want to put a little foot up. I would never take an under 5.5 during the season. When I gave these out last night,
there's sixes out there. -126 is out there.
You know what you can do, Alex? You can hit that tips button. I think it just pops up little random things that might be fun for people to see. But yes, I do. All right. One thing that's a little different about these videos is I just know who the people are. And if they'd rather get something you like and then just they're going to take something else. There's a few, I call them Dans. Yo, Alex, I actually have a graphic to click the Dan graphic. And very few people are standard 9-to-5 regular bettors who wave at their neighbor in the morning and are only interested in one straight bet per evening. There are many few of those roaming these seas. So, for example, I tell people in a game like this, I would take the under 6.5, and then I would put it with Artemi Panarin under 1.5 points, which I think is a good value in a game like this. I did that with Pasternak when he played the Canes. I like taking under 1.5s when teams play other teams who are having to play good defense. I mean, I know you guys are all over Winnipeg and stuff like that, so just use the Winnipeg as an example. If there's a habitual 1.5 point producer like Pasternak and they're playing a team like the Jets, I will go under 1.5 points for that guy, and then maybe like combine it with the alt under 6.5 and get a bet at like plus money.
Yeah, I think that's a smart strategy. I don't know how Josh.
Got to boost it for the Sniffers for sure.
Yeah, and don't feel free, because this is my video. Like, I grew up with a bunch of friends who they've never gave me one compliment my whole life. And we're like, my group of friends are like referees. You make the slightest mistake, you're in the news for years. You do your job, you don't even get a head nod. It's just that's the way it's supposed to be. So if you disagree with anything, it's way better to figure out why.
I'm not an over better. The only thing I like targeting overs on are player points. But when I talk about totals in a game, I never like. But that's a public bet. The over is a public bet, and I just feel like with unders, like you're winning the whole way until like they actually have to go out and score. And how many goals do we see get called back too, right? If you're sitting on an over, and I get, some teams pull their goalies late in the games and stuff, and if you're an under better, you can't stand the 3-1 games where goalies or teams pull their goalies with 10 minutes left, try to get that early goal.
The Patrick Wire is back.
Yeah, Patrick era is back.
That's where it started. Yeah.
My line is that there are many paths to an under and only one to an over. If you want to hit an over, everything's got to be working and the goal's got to be falling. But if you're taking the under, a goalie can steal it for you. Bad luck posts. You can have an offsides overturn. You could just have a general defensive game. There are so many different roads that can lead you to an under. There's one that leads you to an over, and it's the offense is clicking and the goals actually dropping. So I always believe that unders are a better way to go, especially once we get closer to playoffs with, everything on the line, and you have teams trying to defend leads and series and whatnot. But one of the props that I do like in this game, without Eichel and guys like that, you seeing the leaders have to step up a little more. We got this top line of Vegas, and I'm seeing plus money for Mark Stone on 2.5 shots. Now, I don't know how that stacks up analytically over his last couple of games. This is me trying to play the game of foresight and figure out how a game like this will play out. Now, if I'm thinking that this is going to be a low-scoring game, like their first one, like a 3-2 kind of game, then in those type of games, I do feel like you get guys more likely to shoot, and Stone has to bear more of the burden with the current roster construction of the team. I saw him at like plus 120 or something like that last night. I'm not as good with the Patrick Waugh analytics, but call this a sniff prop. I feel that Mark Stone is going over 2.5 shots.
I'm looking at the second line, because right now they're rocking kind of like two lines right now. So that top line, the Mark Stone line, and Chandler Stevenson centering it, and then Dorofeyev, who you alerted to me earlier last week, right, when you jumped up. But the second line too, the Marchessault, Waugh, and Barbashev line might be an angle. Like if you're looking to boost this number, if you're looking to add something, you can add Roy and Barbashev for a point. I believe they're also playing PP2 together, so at least there's a little correlation. And the two of them just for a point is plus 320. I mean, so you can get it done in one. Yeah, I mean, and it's always nice to have the center in that point too, right? Center,
cheap face off.
Get more touches, and that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I just will say, if you're a team that if you're a guy who like rides the waves of how a team's playing, Rangers are not playing well. Like the Rangers, if you look at their early stretch of the year, it's been a lot of mediocrity since then. I mean, they barely trickled out a win, I think, versus Anaheim, lost to the Sharks in overtime. They've been having a tough go.
Lost to Vegas.
Yeah, with a 2-0 lead, and they're coming home after that long West Coast trip. By the way, Carlo, as a Canadian, this might not register the same, but I think there are few less miserable experiences in this world, in my head, maybe it's pleasant, than driving from like Calgary to Edmonton and just looking out the window and like you're in the minors saying, what the hell has my life become? I can't imagine that's like driving on South Beach. I don't imagine those roads are pleasant to be looking at, pitch black on a winter night, driving in a bus from one to the other.
What do you mean? You don't like seeing like cornfields and mountains and blue skies and sunny Alberta, snowy Alberta, cold Alberta?
Like, do Canadians think that though? Because I know like Americans are like, oh wow, it's cold up in Boston. But as I was saying to John, like there's a whole nother way. We're in the north in Game of Thrones. You guys are the wildlings. It's like a whole nother level of cold up there.
Well, Andy, you think we live in igloos, don't you? You basically think we live in igloos.
No. I'm not a freak like that. I understand, but there is like I can go outside, 28 degrees, I'll deal with it. But you start getting into like these -9s. That could not feel nice.
Man. Well, Alberta was in the -30s, -40s up until a couple weeks ago. And the thing about Alberta this time of year, just going from my own player experiences, like when you're there in the month of December, January, it's dry, man. You wake up, dry throat, dry nose, dry skin. It's just, it's the cold air that gets you, man. But I mean, like what do we think about it? I mean, we don't really think about it much because it's the normal way of life we grew up.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
You know, when you get trained to take a beating, the beatings are all you know. So I mean, it's a good thing.
This is a good point for Carlo's idea on schedule spots that he touched on earlier. And you mentioned it too, Andy, that Rangers coming off a very lackluster West Coast trip, but now they go from West Coast to East Coast. A lot of people think that the issue with traveling is taking East Coast to West Coast. Carlo thinks it's the other way around. The East Coast teams returning from West Coast trips struggle in their first game back. You saw it with the Leafs game versus Winnipeg, and this kind of fits his narrative in the spot. So what is it in that situation?
Carlo? For me, you're asking? Well, look, it's body clock, right? It's, you know, your body's been trained to live a certain way with in a certain time zone for over a week, and then you come home, you got to turn the clocks ahead. You're losing time, you're losing space, and you know you're dealing with different adjustments. You know, guys have families when they come home. It's just, it takes a little bit more time for those energy levels to come up because your body clock has been through so much.
I have a question, and I'm going to do zero research, so hopefully somebody will. But I'm noticing when you get a West Coast team who gets thrown on that random noon game, like I saw it with, who the hell was it? Like a week or two ago. I think Buffalo hosted man, I'm forgetting who it was. And then earlier in the season, another Western Canadian team had to play in Boston. That's 9 a.m. on their inner clocks.
Yeah. No,
there's no way they could be playing with the same juice as like a 7 p.m. Tuesday night game. And I know that both of those teams lost those games. I'll have to go back.
Vancouver, Buffalo, 1-0 Vancouver.
Oh, yes.
2 Saturdays ago.
Yeah. No. And it was Casey DeSmith that stole the show in that game. Wasn't it?
Yeah, 9 a.m. body clock.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm going to let you lead the way on the one I was talking about before, because I know your average 9 to 5 Dan is looking at the Florida Panthers.
I just pictured Dan like front of the driveway with them slippers on, newspaper, generic question. You know, just like being a nice neighbor question. Yeah, just like, hey, how's job at the dealership, Bill? Oh, great. Car's still going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. It's full Truman Show. Hey, Josh, how are the kids? You know?
Oh, you know, quite a handful, Andy.
We're full Pleasantville status.
But no, that's it. I think Vegas is a spot. We gave out Vegas this morning, 130. There's some prices out there starting to see it fall. But I think, man, if you get, I don't mind backing minus 130 at all. Vegas showed that they can score even with Eichel. And now you touched on it too, Andy, Aiden Hill's back. And Aiden Hill, statistically the best goalie in hockey. If you can hit your wagon at minus 130 to the best goalie, that doesn't happen very often. So there's a spot there too.
So now I was saying, let's go to this Florida Penguins game. This is one that scares me because I know like the right side technically.
You like Pittsburgh in this matchup?
I'm not willing to say that because I know Florida. I predicted the game that they were going to turn it around, and I thought it would be with a crusty defensive effort that their coach would kind of preach. And then they brought that game. I mean, it took a million penalties, but they kept their next opponent to 2. And as I was saying last week with Josh, and it was something I wanted to ask you. Everyone talks about power play chemistry. Everybody talks about offensive chemistry, a line that's clicking. Nobody ever talks about defensive chemistry. And I'm of the belief that when a 5-man unit, when things are going right and simple plays are being made and you're keeping multiple opponents, I mean, the outer end of this would be the Winnipeg. That would be like all the way towards the tip of what I'm talking about. Yeah. But I think defensive chemistry, it flows from game to game. Same type of thing with goaltending. We say, he's a hot goalie, but no one ever talks about the defense. And I would be scared betting against how the Panthers play defensively these last 2 games.
Touch on that, D-man.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, me and Josh are very, very high on the Florida Panthers, and a lot of what has turned their franchise around, I wouldn't say their season, because you go back to last season in the playoffs, it was when Keith Tkachuk came on our show and called out the Florida Panthers and said they were too soft, where they really started to turn around. But what really started to click with them was their attention to playing a better defensive game. They carried that over into this season. It helps that they're getting the same level of goaltending from Bobrovsky, but it's a team mindset that they've developed where, look, our defense is going to be the strength that carries our offense. And that's exactly what's happened this season. I mean, they don't give you a lot of time and space. They play fast, they play physical, and they make you pay for their chances. And everything you mentioned about teams that you're looking for that have chemistry. You said clicking offensively. You said power play. That's the total opposite of the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. Their power play has been awful. They've got no chemistry on any of their lines. They're 7 points out of a playoff spot. I think they're like 2-8 in their last 10. And they're playing against a Florida team that, prior to a 3-game losing streak that they had, were one of the hottest teams in the league at winning 9 in a row. They get a big win last night. I think this is huge momentum that they're going to carry into this matchup against the Penguins. I actually really like the Panthers. I think this is great value you're getting at a team that is just better than the other one. And I think Josh feels the same way.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Hey, we're a couple of Dans here.
Hey,
look at us. Hey, Dan, good to see you. You're on the Alex, that's hysterical.
So fast.
Alex, that is hysterical.
Yeah,
that's the good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Beat me to it. Nice.
Hey, that's it, everyone. Florida it is. Close it. You're a millionaire. I'll see you next week.
Well, I don't want to take any risks today, so let's go with the away favorite. But like we laughed about analytics, but Florida defensively 5-on-5, number 1. Expected goals against per 60, which is a pretty good indicator of where their defensive game is at even strength. Offensively, they got Barkov back, which their fucking lines get so dirty once Barkov goes in the middle. They got Sam Reinhart on the third line, who's second in the league in goals. I mean, if you look at that third line, those two guys were in the top line with Barkov out. Now Barkov comes in. You can roll. And so we talk about home and away, and getting that last change is massive. That last change doesn't mean that much when you can go Barkov or the Bennett line on the second way through. You're not that high end. You've spaced it out. And that third line is probably one of the best third lines in all of hockey. Add in some spots. There's a situation that me and Carlo were talking about today where there's a lot of uncertainty in that Pittsburgh locker room. And with the All-Star break looming, it could be ugly town with the break and people not knowing what's going to happen with that team come the deadline.
Something that was brought to my attention, I'm not going to take full credit for. Maybe I'll take some partial credit, but not really.
Yes,
if you go to those same line breakdowns for the Penguins,
Colin White playing with Evgeny.
Ricard Raquel got the demotion.
Yeah,
because he wasn't cutting the mustard, and now he's no longer top power play, no longer top line. Don't know how his current price stacks up against his previous price, but if you were to go with the same type of thing that we did with like that Rangers game, if you wanted to maybe take an under on Raquel and take like an under alt 6.5 or something like that, that will definitely put you into plus money. It is an option there if you're looking for, a snaky play. And I mean, minus 175 to me sounds like the sports books also knew that information, but just something just something to keep in the back of your head. We'll go to the next game.
Minus 140 under 2.5 shots around that area. If you're looking to put something together, which is a little adjusted, I think, but not as much as that point total is.
All right, Kings-Avalanche, classic home, always capable of their blitzkrieg style. It is amazing when you look at the score sheet. Either the top line does everything or the team probably didn't win. It's really unbelievable. Every single guy on the score sheet is always McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar. Yeah. So either, they shoulder the load or they don't. This is another game probably where you see Kings have like 2 wins in their last 11 and whatnot. Colorado absolutely dusts Washington. I am not with the Dans here. I would not mess with a desperate Kings team who had Kopitar and Doughty call out the players somewhat and whatnot. So what's your take over here?
You go talk about it, Carlo. What is it like? What is it like when someone like Drew Doughty, who is probably I still think maybe the most underrated defenseman, one of the most underrated hockey players in Canadian history, I'll say. What happens when he stands up and gives shit to people like that? Like, is everyone saying, like, is Pierre-Luc Dubois saying, I better change my game?
Yeah, no, look, your coach can call you out. He can say certain things, but your coach isn't in the locker room every day. When a player that is a leader, that wears a letter, and that has the resume that Doughty does, steps out and says something and publicly embarrasses certain individuals on that team, that should be enough to be a message sent.
Dubois don't care.
Well, is he talking about Dubois? Is he talking about Dubois has been playing 4 minutes on the fourth line? I'm not sure he's really talking about.
All right,
Dubois.
so over on Gorgiev saves, essentially, everyone is just blasting shots from everywhere. Is what we're hinting at.
That's a possibility. Look, I today will be a true sign as to how management views this team. If the players come out and play with an urgent effort, you can obviously see that the message was received. If they come out and they play as bad and as careless as they've been victim of the last couple of games, well, then clearly there's a message that's not being received in the room. And so today there's going to be a true telling game as to how I think the rest of the LA Kings season is going to go. But the counter to that is you're playing a Colorado Avalanche team that absolutely loves playing on home ice, led by the guy that's probably the hungriest to win an award this year, Nathan MacKinnon. Like, if you don't think this guy gets up every morning and eats a point sandwich because of the Hart Trophy that he potentially wants to win, well, then you clearly not watching close enough, because this guy is
absolute man missile, bud.
He is.
Seriously.
He's a man missile. I mean, you saw the stuff that was thrown on the ice last game. He got his Mac trick, as they call it. If I'm looking at a play in this game, it's MacKinnon over points, 1.5 points. I just think the 2-horse race between him and Kucherov every night is going to be a fun race to follow, where each guy's going to try to one-up each other. And, you know, we talked about the goaltending situation earlier in the segment, and I think that's been an Achilles heel right now for the Kings, is they're not getting that same level of goaltending. So you might see a lot of goals in this game because, you know, if LA plays with that level of urgency and Colorado just does what they do, you could see it. But Josh, you probably have a better angle with your put your professor hat on and tell us, you know, which side.
Can I throw something quick? I'm going to give a quick hurry up offense 2-minute drill or 2-second drill. Peyton Manning behind the line of scrimmage. I think that line, that over under set at 6 is Vegas. I call that Vegas winking at you, saying, I know you think it's going to be over. Now we baited you. You took the over. All right, good. We're happy about it. Yeah. I think the Kings really are going to throw the kitchen sink at them from an effort perspective, which I think is going to keep this lower scoring. I wouldn't do the Hey, I told you to disagree with me, so I'm gonna give myself the same right. I'm a huge fan of MacKinnon. I think he's money for these points almost every game, especially at home. I don't think this is the right game to choose it, but I did want to ask Josh, as far as a play, I know how Ryan Johansson plays. That guy's always looking for a pass. I see one shooter recently reinserted into that lineup. Is there value in a Lehkonen over on shots on goal?
He jumped up, so it depends on it all depends on how the power play works. Like you know, like he's a bumper guy or the other point on the power play unit. And I don't even know if he went back up to PP1. Daily Faceoff is saying Ross Colton's still there. So if he is getting the PP2, it's not a lot of time. He's currently the third line. So if you're looking to say, holy shit, Artturi Lehkonen had 7 shots in his first game back, that's going to be an outlier more than anything else. I'd probably stay away with it. His number's not going to change much if he gets promoted. So wait for maybe a promotion to PP1 and maybe second line stuff before, or he could easily surpass Jonathan Drouin and take that spot.
So Byram's back. I must have missed that.
Yeah, he came back last game.
Gotcha. All right, so now let's go to the last game quick. I know we got to wrap this. And Carlo, if you got to go.
Yeah, no problem. I just sent the message that I need 10 more minutes, so we're good.
Okay, cool. And then lastly, we got the Blues and the Kraken. The Kraken are what I like to call one of the cockroach teams that like don't give you anything easy any game ever. Like you got to earn your wins against them. They just play like if you watch that Avalanche series, these guys, every time the Avalanche turned around, they had a cockroach on their back. It was so frustrating for them. And I mean, they still play the same way. The Blues, I bet you they screwed a lot of Dans the other night. Yep. I don't know. I feel like Dan's never feel good betting on the Kraken, but to me, this is a spot where I would look. I think the Kraken should win, but maybe if Josh has a reasonable under on a player prop on the St. Louis side, that's kind of what jumped out to me because I know it's not going to be easy to score on Seattle. You know, you got to really earn your corn. And in games like that, I mean, I've mentioned that a couple times. That's when I look for my under on player points.
Yeah.
But, no, it's a tough spot. And like, is St. Louis really going to run the table on the road and take out Calgary, take out Vancouver, take out Seattle in this spot for a team that is probably a mid-tier team, right? But Jordan Binnington comes back. That is a big deal. He's played amazingly, and Seattle's kind of fallen back to earth with the play of Joey Daccord is regressing from guy putting up banana numbers. But in that situation, I always like this. So Seattle's
don't invest in goaltending.
Seattle's not a deep team. Their first line can get locked down in the matchup game without last change, right? So if you're looking at St. Louis, there's possible shots at taking guys like on that second line, which is Braden Shen, Jake Neighbors, and Brandon Saad. Shen, if Alex can scroll down to the PP1 real quick, I don't think if Shen's on PP1, then there might be something there, but PP2 centering that line was Saad, and Neighbors is on PP1. So if you can get Neighbor points, which I'm seeing at plus 130, you can get a second line guy who will get good matchups, and he's playing PP1. That's not a bad price. But I don't know, I think Shen's shots is 1.5, so it's not a bad thing to add if you need to add something to boost some odds somewhere.
Yeah, and if I know sometimes I forget to throw the bets out to some people because I could say anything. I could say the craziest thing, and these people sometimes, as I was saying the other day, you could put a blindfold on them. I'll take them to hell, and they'll just be like, "Oh, it's getting a little hot, but I'm still going." So if you want my initial feeling on this, I would go with a Kraken win with an under half of a point on Kevin Hayes, who's PP2, but third line, kind of isolated floater by himself. That's my initial sniff on that game. And unless there's
I was actually going to sniff that out too. I was going to say that maybe focusing on a Kevin Hayes prop, considering he's a guy that plays in the third line. And I look at Kevin Hayes as more of a passer than a shooter, in his play. And look, St. Louis is rolling right now, and they're rolling because their top two lines are rolling. So I kind of like where you're going there in that one, Andy.
Cool. And if there's anything else, Josh, then we're good.
No, I was kind of off it. I do lean St. Louis in this spot, but the probability of winning to run that road trip is pretty tough.
Absolutely. And also, if there's anything you guys want to say, Alex, we could pop out of the screen. If you want to pump your stuff, that just doesn't sound right. You want to
thanks for giving me a platform to pump my stuff, Andy. Wait.
Go ahead, pump your stuff for the Raw Doggers.
Yeah, 2 days. Here you go, Sniffers. Jesus. No, I'm not pumping anything. Me and Carlo, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. release. He's the man. And if you have any questions, like reach out to him on Twitter. Andy will put his Twitter thing. If you have any questions, like what the fuck does it mean to play the last game before the All-Star game? Like, are people taking days off? Like, if you have like subjective hockey questions, he'll answer you. That's why
you guys all kind of dissent. So I had to leave last week and I was out of town, so I couldn't do a video on Monday. But what I did was I watched your guys' last video. I'm like, I hope these sniffers went over there. They went over there like an army, and they were like sniff gangs up in that. They really, I learned last week who these people truly are. I always just thought they were kind of maniacs, but they are. Some of them are awesome, they travel in hordes.
Yeah, and that's why I asked you, because we were like, being bombarded with comments, and everyone's like, sniffer this, sniffer that. I go, what does sniffing mean? And
Carlo, your face. I'm watching that episode. I'm sitting down in a bed in St. Martin with a beach out there, and I'm just watching, and you don't know what's happening yet, and I'm just seeing your face go, and I'm watching you read, and then you would say, hey, what and then Josh explains. It's priceless. It's so funny.
No, great community. Andy is always the best. They're a wild bunch.
Sure,
engagement's nuts.
Yeah, no, it's nuts, and I'm looking forward to it, and I thank you for having us on your show. This was fun, man. I can't.
You guys are always welcome back any single time. Like I shoot this by myself every day. Any day you go, I got time on Thursday. Why don't we do it? It's no problem for me. I enjoy having you guys on.
Yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. I can't believe we've done 50 minutes of this. This is time flies when you're having fun. But I'll share a quick story before I leave. I remember when I was playing in St. Louis, our last game before the All-Star break was at home against the Capitals, and in warm-ups, I was, doing my thing near the red line, and one of the linesmen was standing there just making sure everything was good. And I skate up and I go, "Did you guys bring your whistles tonight?" And he goes, "Yeah, why you ask?" I said, "Well, make sure you leave them in the dressing room. Because we want no whistles. We want running clock. We want this game to be over fast because we want to get out of here and into our All-Star break." So that's the mindset for some of these players.
Running clock. Let's get some unders in there tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Fewer whistles. Let's get to that.
Yeah.
Let's get to that All-Star break.
I tell you what, man, 2 things to pay attention to. Be wary of the boards. Do not bet chalky this weekend because it's a prime spot for underdogs to come through because not everybody's going to be in the same mindset. And I would say unders too if you're running clocks.
I'm going to include their stuff in the description of this video. I'll try to put it in the title as well so you can click on it. There should be pop-ups appearing throughout this video, and definitely at the end you can get their stuff on Twitter. They have that show on covers on their YouTube channel, which you could I know a bunch of you have checked it out. I'm telling you, there's only so much I can do on my own. Josh is really great at finding those crevice bets that have paid off for many of you guys already. Yeah, but he's living in those crevices, and terminology really just starts popping up everywhere in these videos.
I just have one last question before we go.
The lesson in trickle down snakeonomics has been welcomed. I appreciate
Snakeonomics?
Trickle down snakeonomics. You don't know about it?
Trickle down snakeonomics is all these elevations and promotions that most people don't know about. Your regular Dan doesn't know about, but Josh is tracking. So, this guy got a promotion. This guy got a demotion. Kills on the third line. That's trickle down snakeonomics.
Yeah, he's definitely the best at that. 100%. One last question before I go.
Yeah,
I love your background. I really get obsessed nowadays because I work from home. I do a lot remotely. What is that video game you have in the background?
Street Fighter 2.
It's Street Fighter 2, which should be
awesome.
part of your childhood as well.
You're such a Dalsum guy, I bet.
Huh?
Carlo, you're a Dalsum guy, just sitting there on the other side of the screen, long leg kicking.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
for sure, man.
Garbage.
I got golden tee. Maybe I should put my golden tee right here as part of my background.
Well, I would trade all this stuff for my experience to play on Team Canada, or I guess I should say USA. I probably could have made Team Italy back then, but fair enough, man. I will talk to you guys again soon. Definitely have you. You're always welcome. You just got to shoot me a message, and I'm sure everybody appreciates this like they did last week. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Good luck to producer Alex decompressing this file, by the way.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Yeah, later.